So Dominik, Gero, Konrad and Jean-Claude, thanks a lot for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you all here with us. First of all, I'd like to maybe quickly use the, let's say, first minutes of the time, because I was really impressed of the project at Zumtobel. Gero, to ask you one question. How challenging was it, to potentially change from, having siloed operations in warehouse operations, manufacturing operations, to this, let's say, holistically thought out manufacturing operations concept, including logistics?
First, we had to do it. So to be honest, we really had to do it. So therefore, it was a really good approach. But I think mainly key driver in this was that we work with concircle together, and they show us the best practice from industries, and therefore we can make from the best practice from concircle with the consulting from concircle our good practice. So we hope to achieve that we can build again one system which lasts for at least 10 years or maybe perhaps 20 years again.
Looking, let's say, from the partner implementation side, Konrad, how did you tackle this, let's say, bigger transformation at Zumtobel, and what were like the key success factors from the implementation side? What did you specifically need to consider?
Yeah. So thanks for having me here, and also a big welcome to the Swiss audience. It's always a pleasure to be here in Switzerland. Coming back to your question, I think the important point at Zumtobel, but also in other projects like at Bühler Group here in Switzerland, a key factor is that the top management is supporting these transitions. So that was also the case at Zumtobel. The CEO was fully supporting this project, challenging this project, and this made it quite good to start. Yeah? And also forced us to really have this holistic view on the processes. Yeah? Not just looking at one part or the other, but really saying, okay, how can I improve my OTT? Like Gero said before, yeah? And how can you improve it? Yeah? You must control your material flow, you must control your planning, and you must control your production process. And that's how we started this project, and I think it's going quite well. Yeah?
Interesting. Jean-Claude, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Cool. Thanks for being here today. Jean-Claude, you are quite an experienced SAP practitioner, and speaking to many of the SAP customers here in Switzerland, or with many SAP customers in Switzerland. How is your perception of this topic when you speak with other customers about it?
Well, thank you for first of all for having me and giving me the chance to share my thoughts. I'm speaking to you as a CIO in an Swiss industrial company, and of course, as you mentioned, as the speaker for the Swiss companies that are part of the DSAG user group here in Switzerland, but also in Germany and Austria. To your question, I think a lot of industrial companies have the same challenges. I mean, we are looking at a lot of competition from Asia, but also from other Western companies, and I think we really have to make sure that we keep up with what's happening around us. Also, Industry 4.0, we're hearing that kind of, sorry the expression, buzzword for a long time already, but I think it's very, very important that we come from the plateau of heightened expectations to the plateau of productivity, as Gartner sometimes expresses that. And so I was very glad to see that Zumtobel and other companies are really now also, implementing other use cases than only the predictive maintenance that we have been seeing for a long time. I think it needs more than that, and that's of course where I come to the challenges that a lot of companies are facing. It's not a lack of tools. We don't have too less tools. We actually have too many tools. I think it's always the question of the mapping of the functionalities of the tools that we are looking at to the challenges that you are facing, to create real solutions. And that's something that maybe partners of SAP can support, but also I think SAP itself should support as a company. That's what we hear from many members of DSAG, that there are a lot of great products and a lot of great really functionality in those products, but sometimes it's not quite clear what problems you can solve with it, and what is the road to success. So I think one challenge is certainly to get those as you say, horsepower onto the street and really create solutions. So that's certainly one challenge, and of course also the other challenge that some companies are facing is a little bit, the differentiation between on-premise and cloud solutions. That's sometimes not always crystal clear where a solution is being deployed and how the roadmaps behind that those solutions are. That's an old song that DSAG sings all the time, of course, but it's still very much true, because if you create those industry solutions, you really have to make sure that you're on the right track. And I think also their SAP can support a lot that companies can be successful in creating such solutions.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Jean-Claude. Very valuable feedback. Dominik, maybe looking to your side, if you look, because you're acting in a global role, and you see many more customers than maybe I do see in our little Switzerland, even though it's quite an interesting little Switzerland where we do quite a lot of innovation. What are the key themes you see in this area? Is, for example, IoT really commercializing and ramping up in the breadth you spoke about, or are customers still hesitating to kind of do these big moves on global templates with these kind of approaches?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I mean, first of all, I want to say, listening to our customer, listening also to the feedback from DSAG, you're definitely not alone. I think this is a very great example where so many of our customers are really starting their journey, not only by, let's say, considering intelligent factories as needing MES systems, right, a manufacturing execution system, but truly looking at it from a business process transformation angle. I mean, we learned a lot today how important the intralogistics piece is, right? Jean-Claude mentioned also asset maintenance. So that really symbolizes for me the true value potential when implementing Industry 4.0 strategies. It's not about executing the shop floor, it's about end-to-end business processes. But of course, those transformations aren't easy. We see that with even customers that are running larger transformations in our S/4HANA or ERP journeys. But what I believe is really a key differentiator nowadays compared to when the whole idea of digital transformation was born some 10 years ago is that we really see that the cost of operations have significantly gone down. So where I fully agree is technology cannot be the trigger for innovation. It needs to be a business purpose. It needs to be processes that companies want to innovate, that companies want to change. But technology can certainly be an enabler to reduce cost of operations of costly on-premise software or deployments into every single plant, into every single warehouse. So I do believe that, by the, let's say, new technologies that we have at hand, you mentioned IoT as an example, that really helps us to reduce cost of operations and just accelerate these journeys. Now, looking at especially the industrial IoT, for us, or for me actually, it's sometimes a bit of a question, what do we understand behind it, right? It's similarly a buzzword than Industry 4.0. And for us at SAP, we see 4 major pillars behind the industrial Internet of Things. And some of which, to your question, I see very high adoption. Some are much, much more at the starting point. Just to give you 2 examples. One that I see completely at the starting point is edge computing. As part of our IoT portfolio, we basically bring cloud applications that run in a data center in Frankfurt, in Amsterdam, in Shanghai. We bring those application capabilities onto the edge. which is so critical when we think about manufacturing, right? Because of course I need high availability, I need resiliency, even if I have intermittent internet connectivity, I need that in the plant, in the factory. So we do that by bringing basically small edge servers into each factory. I mentioned earlier, we do this, for example, with Microsoft. And it really allows you to accelerate your transformations because you don't need to deploy solutions factory by factory. But back to your question, that is a technology in its infancy. We do see very successful implementations, but while cloud computing in mission critical processes, right, in the factory, orchestrating machines and devices is very new, right? There are not a lot of companies that have done this end to end, but we really see in talking to some industrial leaders in this world, amongst them automotive OEMs, amongst them pharmaceutical companies, we see a huge momentum right now, even with mission critical processes, to go into the cloud and the edge. My second example, where I see already a lot of maturity, is when it comes to, let's say, leveraging the wealth of data that you can harvest out of the industrial Internet of Things. So the wealth of machine and devices that are already equipped with sensors, we see a lot of companies that already use this data to improve their processes. That could be gaining efficiency, right, by just understanding better where processes fail or where they have challenges, bottlenecks. We talked about predictive maintenance, so moving away from very deterministic maintenance plans and towards predictive maintenance. But even in logistics processes, right, automating these processes by leveraging smart sensing technologies is certainly very mature since we first introduced RFID tags, right, which are now super cheap to equip forklifts, handling units, or boxes with them. So two examples, both very different in their maturity, in my opinion.
Maybe if I look to you, Gero and Konrad, because you've done this amazing work at Zumtobel, looking into the future, are there, because I've seen the shop floor and it was quite amazing, you know, you've digitized mobile, let's say, warehouse processes. I didn't see, maybe I missed it, maybe as well connected to AGVs. What is the next phase? What is, you know, are you planning already ahead to drive this kind of innovations in future, or what's the plan in these sites in future?
You already mentioned it. You haven't seen AGVs. So this would be our second wave. We want to have AGVs in the plants. So while we roll out our template to the other plants in the lighting, we want to, of course, innovate in our plant in Dornbirn and have, of course, AGVs. We want to have more automated warehouses. We want to have more mobile applications so that the customer journey can be more integrated into the shop floor.
Okay, cool. And Konrad, from an implementation point of view, how important do you consider, you know, that when you do this kind of, let's say, projects, you bring the expertise not only from a process point of view. I think, Gero, you mentioned in your slides that you relied on process expertise, you know, end to end, but as well vertically, I would assume there is some competence required to connect with infrastructures, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. So I think here in this phase, we are really now trying to cover the complete factory. So the Zumtobel has a very extensive production depth. Yeah. So starting from extrusion to sheet metal to assembly, of course. So all this must be covered by the template. So that's the first point. Yeah? And I think then the next step is really then to going more in this vertical integration, like IoT integration, like machinery integration, and also then to connect later, not only to the shop floor, to the equipment, but also to the sales and operations planning. So for example, IBP is one of the topics which is also on the agenda. And then hopefully in a very short period, we really have this dream come true, vertical integration from the top, really down to the machine integration. So I think that's the vision which is driving Zumtobel, but not only Zumtobel, but I think many companies. And what I see is that, as we heard before, we get the tools from SAP to do this, but it's our task as partner, but also, of course, that it's a challenge for the customers to bring the right persons, the right knowledge to really build these solutions.
Okay. Jean-Claude, if I may come back to you very quickly, and you brought up quite an interesting point just a couple of minutes ago when you said the customers require even more support, from externals like SAP, for example, or directly from SAP when it comes to those topics. Do you think it's related to the, let's say, specific complexity of these topics that customers maybe potentially want to, get into details and get maybe even, as we've seen, live cases or live demos, or, bring them to the manufacturing site and make it experienceable?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's hardly ever really a question of technology that is available to us. It's very often, and you mentioned that also before. It's the way of thinking, how we think processes, how we do processes, how we implement processes, and it starts at the very top. There needs to be an idea that you want to change the way you do things, and then of course you need the people who understand the technology. And I think there, very often I can only speak for myself. Very often you're so busy keeping everything running, and it hasn't gotten any easier with all the new cloud technology and so on. So you have a lot of balls in the air all the time, so you really need to get this done, and then you have to also be innovative. And I think there it's really a unique opportunity also for SAP, to produce solutions that are really solving a problem more quickly and directly. And I think I have seen some aspects today, lab-like examples that maybe are then giving the right ideas. But I think it's also very important for companies, to overcome any hindrance that they think they can only work the way they do today. So they really have also to do a lot of work themselves. Absolutely, not only the SAP as a supplier, but SAP as a supplier has definitely a unique position, because SAP as a ERP manufacturer is already in many companies deeply implemented into the processes. So I think that's a unique opportunity also to go many steps further and help companies to evolve in digital transformation.
And Jean-Claude, this was really a good hint, because I personally see as well quite a big advantage, when having or operating, let's say, logistics manufacturing in quite an integrated way. I think in your specific case, Gero and Konrad, did you somehow specify the value, of having this deep integration between, the triangle of ERP, logistics, and manufacturing? Was it something you realized quite quickly, or how did you experience it compared to before?
Oh, that's pretty clear. It's obvious that it will be better and more efficient because, for example, let's take the traceability. With the old ZLS system, I showed you the screen. You can imagine if you try to have their traceability, it would be really hard to implement it with the old ZLS system. So therefore, with the integrated solutions and the integrated processes, it would be much easier and will be much easier to have traceability and to have more performance analysis about how the shop floor is working right now.
Okay.
I would also agree with Gero at this point. So I think Zumtobel had from the very beginning this clear picture. SAP is our technology provider. We want to have an integrated solution built on SAP. And at this point, we came into the game because we, as a service provider, focused on industry customers and focused on exactly these pillars. It was, I think, a perfect fit for Zumtobel and us, and we are also enjoying this project, because it's not always the case that the customer is really very clear what's the IT strategy where we want to build up in different phases, and here I would say it's also for us as a partner a perfect environment to bring in our expertise and to make here a successful project, which is then also accepted and welcomed by, of course, the users. So we are talking about operators, logistics clerks, planners. So really a lot of people also in the company must follow this change process. And I think here we found really a very good strategy to establish this acceptance at the end.
Dominik, maybe looking to your side. I mean, we just got reconfirmed, you know, the relevance of integration for aspects like traceability, you know, throughout the entire, let's say, material and information flow. Is it as well playing into SAP's strategy? Because we have quite some topics, you know, like integrated production supply and all these topics. How do you see these topics coming together within our strategy?
Yeah, no, I think this is a very, very good, let me say, keyword to talk about the impact of traceability or the impact of visibility of what's happening in your shop floor. I see many, many customers that are not, let's say, running an entire factory with one execution management system. A lot of them have, especially if you go across industries where you have very specialized machines, very specialized processes, where you also need different software pieces. So our ambition has never been to replace every specialty piece of software, but to build this backbone of traceability. So we do this, for example, in our manufacturing systems or in manufacturing operations by tracking what is happening on the shop floor on the lowest possible level. We call this a shop floor control unit. So essentially we take a production order and we slice it into its components, right? Basically every single step along the entire production process, every single machine interaction, every single manual work that is happening with the, whatever you're producing is very, very clearly tracked and allows this end-to-end traceability. Now, why is this so important? And I see really two major aspects. The first one is sometimes there are legal or compliance reasons, right? So pharmaceutical companies require an electronic batch record. Device or machine manufacturers need a device history record. They need to know exactly down to even the torque of a screw that was assembled. They need to track, let's say, the exact steps that were followed for auditors or for legal purposes. But even more importantly is the second point. We see completely new use cases that evolve if you track this data, but even make it available across your ecosystem. So we do this with our business network strategy. So I think that's where I see a great convergence of really end-to-end traceability, so that I, as a manufacturer, I'm able to, on one hand side, share quality records with my end customer, right, who might has a warranty case or who might want to trace back the root cause of an error of an issue. But vice versa, I also want to receive as a OEM or as a manufacturer, perhaps telemetry data or usage data from my customer using my parts and components. So I think on both sides, traceability is key in order to, again, find new use cases, for example, reducing recalls in the automotive industry. Yeah.
And Konrad, maybe just as final words, I think Jean-Claude mentioned it quite nicely, and as we work quite closely with the DSAG and listen carefully to our customer groups, we've established these kind of, you know, working areas or showcase areas in Walldorf. But I think you at Concircle did something similar.
Yes, Asim, yeah. So that's really a great thing in Walldorf. But if you want to come and visit our beautiful Vienna, we have there a pilot factory which we run with the University of Technology. And this is really a great place where you can experience SAP processes run in manufacturing. Yeah? So I welcome you to join us next week on Thursday, 11th of November. We have an event there. It's a hybrid event. You're welcome to join us there or online. Would be pleased to see you there.
Great. So a big thank you, Jean-Claude and Gero, as well a big thank you to you, Dominik and Konrad, for this very interesting panel discussion. With this, we conclude the panel and are now moving to the most exciting part of the session, the drink tasting. The bar is already open. Stay with us. We'll be back in a second.